Hello, my name is Clara, and today I will talk about scary stories we can find in myths, and precisely how myths shape the education and the behaviors of children in Guam and in Canada. During this presentation, I will talk about the roles of myths in oral cultures, the role of fear in the child's development. I will talk about Reflection 1 from Teresita Lourdes Perez. I will talk about the myth of the Wendigo from the Canadian Encyclopedia, and I will talk about the story of Nuliajuk, narrated by Peter Erquick from Nuit Nojat from Nunavut. And then I will conclude and present the works cited list that helped me build this presentation. Before starting, I would like to warn you and acknowledge that the stories used are not the only one that exist in the world. Oral stories may vary depending on the nations, the locations, and the generations. I use the stories that are the most general. I do not state that the stories used in this analysis are the main ones, or as we can say, the correct ones. I acknowledge that variants exist and that they are as valid as the one I chose. So first of all, why do we tell stories and why are there myths in the community and people's culture? Well, their role is to connect. As Deere said, indigenous peoples of the world have taught and learned through oral transference of knowledge for thousands of years. So that's why in this analysis I decided to compare indigenous people from Guam and from Canada, because worldwide indigenous people in their culture have taught to transfer through oral manners their knowledge. And as Deere said again, the action of storytelling is in itself a teaching tool. It helps teach listening skills and deepen one's thoughts about community, identity, respect, and spirituality. It helps teach the children about life and nature, and morals and values. It's about the stars, the moon, the clan system, the relations between the spirits and the humans. Myths and stories teach respect for the universe as a whole. So as I said, yes, it connects, but it not only connects people together, it connects people with their environment. So as Deere said, it's about the physical things they can see, so the star, the moon, the nature elements, but as well as the spirits and their ancestors and all the spirituality around nature. And how about the role of fear? Fear is a fundamental human emotion triggered by a perceived threat. It serves as a basic survival mechanism that signals our bodies to respond to danger with a fight, flight, or freeze response. As such, a fear is an essential part of keeping us safe. So the role of fear is a biological response to, as McNamara said, a threat that people can fear. So fear within children precisely helps them understand the world around them and to protect them. So fear has the role to protect the child from outside threats that might hurt him or even kill him or her. So in Reflection 1 from the Chamorro legend, A Gathering of Stories, first of all, the resume of it, it's about the story of a girl who had to take care of her little sister to go to church. And as they are getting ready, a demonic dog scares them. The thing is that the girl and her little sister are alone in their home. And the older sister gets scared by the dog and the little sister as well. There are several elements that shows that Reflection 1 is a scary story. So the fact that the girls were alone and there were no parents around or adults or grown-ups to help them like live this situation of the fact that there's a scary dog outside of the house. The fact that the demon was involved, it is a scary fact since the girls are religious and they know that demons are a bad thing that can do bad things to you, especially in the Christian religion. The dog has scary features. So as it is described in the story, the dog comes from hell. It has beady eyes, deadly sharp teeth, hovering menacing over her. So the dog's presence is very imposing and very scary. And the dog as well is blocking their pair. So the dog is not a little baby dog, not unthreatening. No, the dog is demonic. So the vocabulary used shapes vivid images in the listener's head. And like it's easy to imagine that the dog is scary since it has sharp teeth and beady eyes and like a menacing presence in the story. And as well, the fact that the dog appeared out of nowhere, it's a surprise element. The girls didn't expect the dog to be outside of their house, so they are surprised by the dog's presence, and it makes it even more scarier. So why is this story scary, and like what impact it has on the listeners? So the moral of this story is to take care of your siblings correctly, otherwise a demon can hunt you down. And the impact of this story, well, the way it was told, it's a story within a story. So the listener inside the story is now afraid of watching a horror movie. So as we can see in page 2, the listener sat there frozen on their couch, transfixed by the movement of her arms, the expression of her face, the sound of her voice, and my own mental image of her supernatural tale. So we can see that the story of Reflection One has a huge impact on the listener's imagination since, like I said before, because of the vivid images. So now the listener is scared. And as we can see in the other footage from the story that I took, is I was watching TV, and of the minute after that, when I feared for the safety of my soul and of the precious few minutes after that, when I was in fear of my aunt's young lives because an otherworldly beast wanted to tear their little bodies to the shreds. So the fact that it's a grown-up, it's an important figure, it's respected and like beloved figure that tells the story to the listener, which is a child, it has a bigger impact on the fact that the child is scared of the sorry, pardon me. So the yes, as I said, the child is even more scared because there's a trust bond between the adult who's telling the story and the child who's listening to that story. So um, fear in this case helped the adult educate the child on the fact of not listening to horror movies because it can lead to scary things happening in the child's life. The second story I want to talk to you about is the story of the Wendigo, which is a story from the Abenaki, Siksika, Mi'kmaq, Algonquin, Ojibwe, and Innu nations from Canada. Wendigo is also known as the Witiko, the Windigo, the Widigo, the Windikook, the Winsigo, the Widigo, and the Widika, depending on who tells the story and their language. So to resume this story a little bit, it is a human in origin, and it becomes a monster after eating human flesh because of its greed and its weakness. So the story of the Wintico is well known to be told to the community, and it holds scary elements. So I will describe them. Um, So the physical description of the Wendigo is very scary, but depending on the storyteller, the Wendigo is described as exceptionally thin, with a skull and skeleton pushing through its ash-colored mummy-like skin. So it's a tall beast that is very scary. It looks like a giant, and it gets proportionally larger the more it eats, making his hunger never satisfied. I'll get through it. Sorry. And additionally, the Wendigo can have pointed ears with antlers or horns sprouting on its head. Its eyes are glowing like hot coals with sharp and pointy teeth. The Wendigo can have an extremely bad breath and body odor. So just like the dog in the previous story, the Wendigo here has vivid description and scary elements that makes the image in the listener's head very vivid and very scary. Moreover, the Wendigo has supernatural powers, so it has superhuman strength and stamina, has exceptional eyesight, hearing, and a sense of smell. It can move at the speed of the wind, and it has the ability to walk across deep snow and walk on water without sinking. So, if we have to resume its ability within few words, we can say that the Wendigo is an excellent predator. So if you think about it, if you are a young child and you are walking around in the forest and you think about the Wendigo, well, the Wendigo is a great predator to like run after you, and it can hurt you very easily. So the moral of the story of the Wendigo is to reinforce the communal values. It helps people to live well with one another and the environment. Another moral of it is the importance of not being isolated and to not forget one behind or outside the community. This is a very important aspect because First Nation tend to live in boreal forests and they have to survive hard winters. So they have to rely on one another and the fact that they have to share all the belongings that they have um, and all the food that they have. So as a result, it makes the children even more caring about one another on the fact of, as I said, to share food and share possessions, but also it allows children to not be so adventurous in the forest and to not be um, too bold about the fact that they can go in the forest all by themselves. Um, this story teaches children to stay within their group because within a group you are protected. The third story I would like to share in this analysis is the story of Nuliachuk. It's a story from the Inuit people of Canada. Nuliachuk is originally, hope I will say it okay, Uni Gun Maswituk. That can be translated from the Inuktitut to the one that never wanted to marry. So in resume, her story is the fact that her family wanted her to marry, but she did not. Her father, frustrated, pushed her down a kayak and she sank all the way down to the bottom of the sea. There she made the sea her house and she became the boss of all animals under the sea. So when people are telling the story of Noliachuk, there are scary elements as well, just like in the first and the second story I talked about. So Noliachuk is, she's a powerful spirit. She controls water, she controls the animals, and she can control the weather, which is a very scary element if you think about the fact that Inuit people's culture and traditional way of life is to rely on those elements. Indeed, they depend a lot on the environment and the seal. They have to hunt down seals, so they eat from the seals from their meat, and as well they use the fur to make clothing or the bones to make tools. So it makes Noliachuk very scary since she has control over their lives in the end. And another scary element is that when she gets pushed down the kayak, her fingers are cut off, making her unable to use her hands. And again, just like in the two other stories, it makes a powerful image and scary image in the young person's mind, making her terrific. Not, I would not say monster because she's not a monster, she's a spirit. So I would say Nuliachuk is a scary spirit that holds a lot of power, and she has not a lot of description, but the description given are scary in the eyes of the children. So the moral of the story of Nuliachuk is to listen to nature and to respect it, since Inuits' traditional way of life relies a lot on marine animals. It is important to respect the balanced life of everything in order to be able to live this way and prosper on the long term. So it shows to children to respect nature as a whole, because she has the power to take it away from them. To conclude, Indigenous people around the world, could be Chamorro people or Indigenous people of Canada and Inuits, rely on oral transmission to share stories. These stories are used to educate the younger generations. The scary elements in the story play a fundamental role in the child's education to pass down important concepts, such as the importance to respect one another and taking care of each other, as we saw in the first story, to respect nature, as we saw in the third story, and the importance of generosity and to not be greedy in the second story of the Wendigo. So hope you learned something today. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope you will have a great day. And to finish, here's my works cited list. Thank you.